Gaming was a huge part of most people's childhood, and for some, it was their childhood entirely. But the same places we would use to escape, others would use to exploit. From exposing millions of kids to illegal gambling, to a real-world child abduction case, to cyber stalking and other heinous crimes. I've made a list of some of the most unsettling crimes carried out on kids' games, and I honestly wish I hadn't. Many people consider Minecraft as the biggest game in the world. It currently holds the record for being the best-selling video game, having sold over 300 million copies. And with the Minecraft movie also just recently being released, despite if you liked it or not, it was a huge success with over $700 million in revenue. With the game being as big as it is, it's also considered pretty safe to use as well. But in June of 2021, a case emerged that originated from a Minecraft multiplayer server. In Sayville, New York, a 15-year-old boy who was also on the autism spectrum told his family he was gonna go out for ice cream, which was pretty ordinary and normal as the family unaware told him okay and he was on his way. But when hours had passed and he never returned, his family quickly called the police. Pretty soon, the 15-year-old boy was reported missing, and immediately an investigation begun. Some time had passed, and not long after, his bicycle was found ditched in a wooded area behind a shopping center, which was obviously a sign that something far more disturbing had happened. Within a day or two, the police started looking at his devices and discovered that the teen had secretly been communicating with a 20-year-old man from Tennessee, who was named James Howard Thomas. The two had first met through Minecraft from an active multiplayer server, where the two would play alone for hours, although the server was never actually disclosed. Thomas had convinced the boy to eventually switch the chats over to Discord, where everything was completely unmonitored, as Thomas had spent weeks grooming the 15-year-old boy before the incident. The police believed that Thomas had driven over 500 miles from Tennessee to New York with the intention of abducting the teen. Surveillance and phone tracking showed Thomas's car leaving the Long Island area shortly after the boy was last seen. Using GPS and cell phone towers, the authorities had tracked Thomas's car at a rest stop off Interstate 81 in Virginia. The Virginia police were immediately contacted as they intercepted the vehicle and rescued the teen, and Thomas was immediately taken into custody. The police had later confirmed that Thomas had connections with several underage users he met through Minecraft, which raises serious concerns about how many potential victims he has and how many times he's tried to meet up with them. Despite the story being picked up and covered by NBC New York, it honestly feels like we're still in the dark to the full story. With a lot of people online also sharing this same sentiment, it seems like so much is missing from this story. I totally agree. It's definitely more to the story. The 15-year-old boy was also believed to spend a lot of his time in the online world. And because of this, he sadly became the main target for online predators, such as Thomas. Thomas was later charged with second-degree kidnapping, which is a felony offense. And despite all this, it got very low widespread media attention and was barely talked about after. And it's pretty scary to think about what Thomas's true intentions with the 15-year-old boy were. Between 2022 and 2024, several unauthorized gambling websites like Roblox Wild, Bloxflip, and Bloxmoon emerged, offering kids the ability to gamble using Robux. These sites presented digital versions of slot machines, blackjack, roulette, crash-style games, and coin flips, without any sort of actual legitimate age verification. Despite requiring users to confirm they were over 18, there was no actual meaningful enforcement of that, making it extremely easy for children to gamble. These websites required users to connect their in-game accounts to deposit Robux to gamble with. It could then be cashed out into real money or cryptocurrency. Gambling in online gaming isn't some sort of new idea, such as games like CSGO, with billions of dollars flowing through these gambling sites, essentially creating an entire ecosystem so expensive and profitable that it basically exists alongside the actual game itself. But a game like CSGO doesn't really compare to Roblox, as Counter-Strike is targeted towards an older audience, with most gamblers being consenting adults, as opposed to Roblox's demographic, which is mostly underage, with over 67% of Roblox's entire user base being under the age of 16. and over 42% of its players being under the age of 12, which turns something that's already pretty sketchy into something far more exploitative. These gambling websites would promote influencers on social media platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Discord, who would use referral links and promo codes to further push these gambling websites to their underage audience. It wasn't until Sky News had investigated it, they found that these websites were drawing millions of visitors each month and were handling an unknown but large amount of Robux. With one Roblox user in the US who says he gambled around 15 million Robux. He started using the sites aged just 14, 7 years below the legal age for gambling in his state. By late 2023, a class action lawsuit was filed alleging the Roblox Corporation was either complacent or negligent in allowing this to occur, with accusing Roblox of knowingly profiting from these activities by taking a 30% cut from all Robux transactions from these websites. Eventually, Roblox caved in, and their legal team began cracking down on these websites like Roblox Wild, and eventually they all disappeared. Most of these websites are actually illegal in a lot of countries, with Roblox's terms of service also strictly forbidding it, but these third-party sites exploit loopholes anyways, with kids also being the most vulnerable demographic to a dopamine rush because of the gambling mechanics and chance-based systems, which obviously leads to huge financial loss, with a lot of kids being pretty much scammed. With these gambling websites being pretty sketchy by nature anyways, Roblox really doesn't tend to care about stuff like this up until it blows up in their face, as vanilla Roblox already has an infinite amount of gacha systems and loot box style games. But it's hard to ignore for a while, Roblox pocketed a share of profits from unlicensed gambling platforms targeting minors. IMVU is a virtual world and chat platform where users could create their own 3D avatars. They could decorate rooms and engage in social interaction, with a strong focus on customization and relationships. The game was founded in 2004 and is even self-proclaimed the #1 3D avatar social app. Despite the teen rating, the game does have a large adult user base, and the game has practically become notorious online for its basically non-existent moderation. The game has had a long history for inappropriate content and behavior, with truly some of the wildest avatars you'll ever see, with public chat rooms that have explicit roleplay. These rooms are completely public, unfiltered, and packed with minors, and it's extremely easy for adults to pretend to be teens to talk to underage users, like the case of Kevin Wynn, a 29-year-old registered sex offender from Pennsylvania. The game's parental controls are laughably easy to bypass, allowing people like Kevin to blend in. Kevin was messaging a 13-year-old female from IMVU. The two would mostly talk through private chats, but eventually would move on to other social media apps, where the two would take turns sending explicit images, with reports saying that the chats were extremely explicit. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received a tip that stated an IMVU user was messaging the account of a 13-year-old female. The police eventually traced the source of the IMVU account to Kevin, and eventually he was caught. He confessed and admitted to pretty much everything, with also admitting he was talking to another 14-year-old female on Discord. But there actually isn't a ton of details about the case. The game isn't mainstream, so most cases tend to fly under the radar. And with the game's history, more than likely there's a ton of cases similar to this one that we'll never know about. The game does have built-in safety measures, such as an age verification, parental and privacy tools, a reporting system along with a peer moderation review. But the game doesn't do a good enough job in enforcing these, with players finding many loopholes. The game has also become extremely popular for its family roleplay, as TikToks and shorts about it get millions of views. Most of these start off pretty innocent, but predators would use the whole mom, dad, sibling, daughter dynamic and would completely exploit it, as it's frequently used as a group cover. The game actually does have a ton of roleplay, where players would act out as teachers and students, fantasy RP, where players would act as demons, vampires, or magicians, along with anime roleplay, medical/hospital roleplay, and some other pretty weird ones. Yeah, the game is just an absolute cesspool of just weird behavior. The game itself peaked around 2011 to 2014, with a lot of the core audience already gone, as IMVU is one of the most dangerous virtual platforms still operating today. Fortnite Save the World was originally released in early access on July 25th of 2017, but it's mostly known for its Battle Royale mode, which was added in September of 2017. The game exploded in popularity almost instantly, and currently it's one of the biggest games in the world, with most of its major controversies mostly stemming from monetization. But in 2025, a 24-year-old man from Florida named Jacob Lozano was sentenced to 32 years in prison for allegedly organizing a operation in which he would target young boys through Fortnite, using Fortnite's in-game social features to find and connect with his victims. He would start by sending friend requests to kids who would play the game with him, and of course talking to them through Fortnite's built-in voice chat, but would quickly move the conversation to Discord, where they could chat more privately without any sort of moderation. Over time, he would slowly build trust with them. The chats would escalate, and he would manipulate these kids into sending him content, and in some cases he would even try to arrange in-person meetings, as he would primarily target boys aged 10 to 12. He would use tactics such as lying about his age and pretending to be younger than what he was, and he would also send his victims gifts, such as $100 PlayStation cards and V-Bucks gift cards. He would use and say pretty much everything to get these kids to send them what he wanted. The case came to light in 2023 when one of the victims' families became aware of these images being sent to their 11-year-old son's phone. But instead of confronting Jacob directly, one of the family members had tipped off the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and quickly an investigation had begun. An undercover detective posing as a child began messaging Jacob, who replied with photos of himself and materials. According to court documents released last year, police learned that there was at least 3 victims who were pressured into performing sex on webcams. Police said that Jacob would share the photos and videos with others. An arrest warrant was soon issued, and Lozano's Florida home was searched. He was extradited to Maricopa County last January and pleaded guilty in December as part of an agreement. It's believed that Jacob has 6 victims, with potentially more, but that's still uncovered, so the exact number is unclear. He pleaded guilty to multiple felony charges, including exploitation of a minor and attempted aggravated luring of a minor, and will be behind bars for over 32 years. The case was covered by multiple news outlets, especially in the Arizona area, but didn't make much noise nationwide. Pokémon Go was released on July 6 of 2016, a popular mobile game that was truly one of the most you just had to be there moments when first released. The game was centered on catching Pokemon in the real world using your phone, going to locations for waypoints called Pokestops, obtaining items and Pokemon, with also finding Pokeballs, being able to battle at gyms, and finding rare Pokemon. Pokestops are all public locations, such as parks, monuments, and libraries, and it was pretty normal to see mass crowds of people at these locations during the game's peak. But in 2016, the same year of the game's release, a case emerged from Shelbyville, Kentucky, involving a 24-year-old man named Connor Basket, who used Pokemon Go as a cover for committing repeated acts of stalking and indecent exposure. The man was arrested after a woman had reported being harassed as she walked home from her local library. According to police, he followed her by car, shouting at her as he got out the vehicle, and exposed himself in broad daylight. She called the police and Connor was quickly arrested. But during questioning, he admitted that this was not an isolated incident. He confessed to similar behavior throughout the summer of 2016. He would stalk both women and children, often while playing or pretending to play Pokemon Go, and more specifically being around popular Pokestops. The police were quoted saying, "The woman involved yesterday was not his first victim, and so we're hoping the public will soon come forward. If there's any more victims out there that have had incidents like this happen to them, come forward and let us know." It was seriously concerning for the public and the officers that if they hadn't caught him, his behavior could have escalated into more dangerous crimes. The game has had pretty major controversies, especially early on. This case flew extremely under the radar even while the game was at its height of popularity.